Hello there everyone, you've tuned in uxwbill on this beautiful spring day, and while I am nobody's idea of a carpenter, today I'm going to be playing one on YouTube, because what we have right here is a grill piece mounted to the bottom of the porch that has unfortunately been loose for a very long time. It's gotten to the point now where it's continually falling over and wreaking havoc on the little flower bed that we have in front of it. Which, of course, this being spring and all, is not a good thing to do when those little flowers are trying to emerge from the ground, bud, and do flowery things throughout the rest of the growing season. So we're going to be looking at how to repair this today. Although strictly speaking, this will not be a how-to video because everyone's situation is different. Now the truth of the matter is that the pieces supporting that wooden piece of grill work underneath that porch have very likely been repaired before. And I dare say not all that successfully. But then again, to be perfectly fair about it, time gets even with everything. So even if this was a good repair, wind, action of animals maybe trying to get under there, they've all conspired to wear it down and make the grill become loose. So in order to fix it, I've gone ahead and I've purchased some wood screws. There they are. I believe those are 3 inches long. And then over here, I have a couple of pieces of scrap board. I'll take this thing off of this plywood base that it's screwed into if I need it, but I'm going to start with this particular board. And I'm actually going to cut that down to size, cut it into multiple pieces with this little battery-operated circular saw. And yes, this is a Hazard-Fraught Tools special, but it actually works really well. I've been very impressed with that thing in the couple of months that I've owned it now. So let's get sawing. Of course, before you ever use any power tool, you should make sure to take safety precautions first. Wear eye protection, read the instructions that came with the tool, wear any other protection that you may need to have, like if there's dust around. And of course, don't ever force a tool to do more work than it's designed to do. Let's go ahead and get started here. There's one piece. If any of the headphone users that are watching this just survived that, we're going to go again. So you might want to turn down your volume. I just need to make a couple more of those. And look who's here just in time to give me a helping hand. It's the key keeper. Now, one of the things that's definitely going to have to be done here in order to fix this properly will be to dig out some of this accumulated dirt, because otherwise this thing is much too tall to fit back into place. I'll also have to go ahead and remove this thing, but I'm thinking that I can just mount the blocks that I cut to the underside of this board. There's a backing board behind it, and if I mount those into place and then I drive screws into this, I think I'll have a much more robust installation going on. So I'd better get shoveling, because that part is not going to be a whole heck of a lot of fun. The things we resort to when we haven't got a hammer. You know anybody you don't like? Chuck
that out in the street.
Okay, so here I am looking at the underside of this thing with the backing board behind the fascia board. Oh boy. I wonder if I don't choke at this angle. But what I'm going to do, I'll have to figure out what the inset is, just how far back in that grill piece goes. Once I've figured that out, how deep it is, I'll know where I can mount my blocks to this backing board. The good news is that since I dug all of this out, with a little bit of help from the keykeeper there, things are definitely fitting much better than they did. Now sometimes, albeit pretty rarely in my experience, fate smiles. This rail up here is actually 3/4 of an inch thick. And if you can believe it, so too is the fascia board on this porch. That couldn't be any more perfect if it tried. You know, there's an old saying that goes something like, if everything seems to be going well, you've obviously overlooked something. Well, the good news is that the keykeeper and I must not be overlooking anything, because right out of the gate we had some trouble. I drilled pilot holes in all of these pieces of wood, and I still managed to split them out when I was driving screws through them. So I just stepped up to the next largest drill bit, and that seems to have solved that problem, so that wasn't all that serious. But then I discovered that I'd better drill pilot holes in the backing board on this porch as well, because otherwise I was really brutalizing the screw heads. I was really banging those things up. So I drilled some pilot holes for those, and that made that go a lot better. And I know some of you in the viewing audience are probably saying, well, duh, you idiot. And you'd be perfectly fair and justified to say that. I wouldn't take too much offense, but woodworking is not my specialty, although I did make a pretty keen-looking breadboard in high school once. And the keykeeper also had another good idea, since we needed to drill more pilot holes than obviously I had, and that was to go and get another drill. He, of course, has a much higher operating budget than I do, so he has the name brand stuff, whereas I have the off-brand crap. But as off-brand crap goes, this thing's actually pretty good. Actually, as good name brand tools go, this thing is pretty good. I won't tell you about the first one of these that I bought where the chuck fell out after I'd used it just the one time, but this one seems to be perfectly fine. And you know, the biggest problem I have with name brand cordless tools is the battery cartel that they have going. You know, you buy into one tool and you got to buy their batteries. And sure, you can probably buy cheap off-brand batteries somewhere, but they're never quite as good. And they might spontaneously execute a halt and catch fire instruction, which you'd really rather they didn't. But the hazard fraught drill, these batteries are like $11. And that's about what they should cost, because that's about the actual value of what goes into them, give or take a little bit of profit. Of course, this is nickel cadmium and that's lithium ion. At least I believe this is lithium ion. I may be wrong about that. I don't think it actually tells me what this is, but somebody will probably search those model numbers and tell me again that I'm talking out of my hind end. But I finally reached a point where with these things I'm ready to put that grill work back in place. And I think that should go acceptably well. So we'll see. I'll be right back. Thanks to the magic of video editing. Well, I certainly wouldn't have the audacity to tell you that what I did here constitutes good work. In fact, it's probably a little bit on the low end of serviceable. But never mind any of that. It's certainly a million times better than it was. And the only bad thing that happened throughout any of it, I bought 20 wood screws thinking that would be enough, and I made it about 3/4 of the way across there, and then I ran out. So I'll have to go back to the local hardware emporium when they're open again this coming Monday, and then I'll finish this thing up. Now that I've been thinking about it a while, probably wouldn't have hurt to strip and paint this thing if I'd have had sufficient leave of my senses to feel like doing that. And of course I probably should have done that before I put it back up here, but I could always take it down and repair it a little bit, because the board's a little rotten down there where it's been touching the ground. But like I say, it's definitely better than it was, and it's something that needed to be done, because this thing just kept falling down and driving us crazy. So as always, thank you for watching, and if you feel that you have something to say, by all means, certainly do feel free to leave a comment. Even if it's critical, I'm okay with that. Let's just keep it constructive, alright? Thank you. Now that, folks, is most definitely what I would call a 2 Pepsi kind of job.